I actually don't have a song lyric for you this week. I asked out. I got nothing. I got nothing. So here we are, though. We are 14 weeks out. Is that a sign of things to come? Am I just giving up on everything that's non-essential at this point because we're 14 weeks out? No, nothing like that. Just, I don't know. I did a quick look and I couldn't find anything cool for 14. I don't know. Maybe it's a 1 week hiatus. Anyway, I am Darren Starr. Thank you for joining me here. This is my prep vlog for the, my prep for, what's the show called? Battle of the River, June 8th, Chattanooga, Tennessee. Thank you for joining me here. If it's your first time here, welcome. If it's not your first time here, welcome back. And I'm a full-time prep coach, podcast host of The Drop Set, available on all podcast platforms, and a bodybuilder myself. So you can check out my website, 5starphysique.com. It has details on everything that I do, from coaching to workout programs, merch, podcast links are up there, all that good stuff. Check it out if you're so inclined. Subscribe if you are so inclined. Like the video, leave a comment. I will do some Q&A at the end. All of those questions come from comments left on previous videos. So let me know what's on your mind, and we'll talk about it. So it was a productive dang week. So let's get into it. I wanted to kind of shake up the segments a little bit here. So we're going to start with kind of like some wins and some losses for the week. So the first thing we're going to dig into here is what was different this week. The main thing for this week that was different was it was a very busy week by my standards on the social calendar. So my typical social calendar looks kind of like, I was going to look for a blank piece of paper, but I don't have one. It usually looks a lot like that. There's not much on it. You know, it's my wife and I. We got the dogs. We don't have kids. We don't have kids events to go to or anything like that. Her family obligations are pretty minimal. My family's on the other side of the country, so it's really just us. So it's just like, hey, stuff with friends, etc. I don't have a lot of friends. She does stuff with them periodically, but still, we're definitely homebodies. So when there is stuff on the calendar, like there was a lot this week, it's kind of a big deal. So main thing that was going on this week was it was art extravaganza week at the school where my wife teaches. So she is an art teacher. She is also an artist, and she exhibits at that show. It's a professional art show, work for sale, and it's her chance, one chance out of the year, to be a professional artist and go and show her work and sell it. So very cool. So you can see her booth here. It was a 3-day thing, so it was like set up on Thursday. The show runs Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So I was involved a little bit in helping set it up. I went to help tear it down. I went to visit on Saturday as well. So it's just like there's also some social obligations that come with that as well. We'll get to that here. So that was a big overarching theme for the whole weekend. Up until then, the week was fairly quiet and normal. But then once Thursday afternoon rolled around, it was a lot more trips out of the house and just that kind of going on, and everything kind of being centered around that. So Thursday I just went to help set up, didn't really impact anything on my schedule or anything like that. Friday, after the first day of the show, there's a big social gathering at one of the other exhibitors' house, and I love these people, they're great. So there was gonna be drinks, food, etc., social time. So I wanted to go and at least socialize and be a part of it. So I went. I did not eat a thing. I didn't drink a thing. So I had some water. And that was it. But really the main thing that you're going to find is the theme here is that you can be social on prep. It just doesn't necessarily have to involve food. But social is really just like interaction between humans. Food is often a part of that. But if you remove that part of it, the stuff that matters is still there. And so that was my approach. And I would say I had a great time this weekend with all the stuff that was going on. And I don't really feel like I missed out on anything. And in doing so, I also kept myself on track towards the goal. So that was Friday night. Saturday was my birthday. So what did I do for Saturday? Well, it was another day where that was the day where I actually went to the show and walked around a little. I ended up doing booth stand-in duty for my wife while she went and saw some stuff. So it was a little bit more social interaction than I'm accustomed to, being in sales mode for it was like an hour or so. It wasn't that much. But I shifted the meal timing around a little bit, and then we did go out to dinner for my birthday. So you see some pictures of that here. We went to Outback, which, judge me all you want. For some reason, Outback is like the traditional birthday meal out for me. I just dig it. I don't know why. Usually there's a lot of chaos involved here, but being in prep this year, I wanted to keep it fairly reasonable. It was a pretty productive week, so I felt good doing something more than what I had just thought, which was I'm just going to go steak, potato. Great. That's awesome. Perfect. That's all I need. It's a good meal away from home. I don't have to make it. It'll be delicious. Something outside the norm. Awesome. I did go ahead and just because it had been such a productive week up until then, I threw in a side salad with blue cheese, had some of the bread, and ate my fill. Didn't even quite finish the whole thing. Easily could have, but just felt like, I had enough. And also, I had shifted some meal times around. Had my meal 4 shake earlier as meal 3. So meal 3, then this meal took the place of number 4. And then meal 3 then became the final meal. So I still had to come home at night and have my like turkey sandwich, which I normally have as my 3rd meal. So it all worked out great. And I actually dropped down in weight the following day as well. So clearly didn't overdo it or anything like that. It was just kind of nice. It was the first meal out I've had in 8 weeks. Might be the last one I have for the next 14. We'll see. I'm certainly kind of approaching it right now with that mindset. So that was great. No cake or anything like that. Who cares? My wife's birthday is in July after the show. I'll celebrate that with her. So, but I don't feel like I was missing out on anything. I got the stuff that I wanted, and it was nice. And then Sunday, the final day of the art show, again, went to check it out for a little. I was only there for about a half an hour on that day. And afterwards, we all went to Cancun. We didn't hop on a plane and go there. That's a local Mexican place here, which is like the traditional post-art extravaganza final day after your booth breakdown. People go there. There were a group of about 9 or 10 of us there. You can see the carnage from the table here. And again, for me, social. Like, go, talk to people, interact, make those connections, have a good time. Doesn't have to involve food. I had a Diet Coke. That was it. I didn't even touch a chip, which for me is a pretty uncharacteristic display of self-control, but I did it and it was fine. And do I feel like I missed out on anything? No, because my favorite meal of the day is meal 5, and so I came home, did my meal prep, ate that. It was awesome. So I do not feel like I missed out on a damn thing all weekend long. Didn't make myself a hermit either, which was great. So, you can do this. It does increase the degree of difficulty a little bit, but basically just trust yourself. Like, put yourself in a position and have that trust in yourself that you'll be able to do what you need to do in order to follow your plan and stay on track with your prep. That's all there is to it. And clearly, if you're not in prep, then sure. I mean, if I wasn't in prep for a show right now, I totally would have had like an enchilada or for some fajitas or something like that. I probably would have sprung for the bloomin' onion at Outback. Would have had some nibbles at Brad and Elizabeth's on Friday night when I was there. Sure, that's fine. In prep, no, it's just a non-negotiable thing. It's off plan, and I'm not engaging in anything off plan. That's all there is to it. But you don't have to remove yourself from society altogether at the same time. So you can figuratively, at least, have your cake and eat it too. So let's dive in now on the new section, weekly wins. Let's see what we got there. Well, for weekly wins, I feel like we just went over all of them. It was basically doing all of that and staying on plan and not losing a step. There were some big drops in the scale this week. We'll get to that in the numbers side of things. Everything went great. It was a week for me where it was a slightly higher degree of difficulty just because there's more stuff going on. But it all worked out really, really well. So that is the biggest win for me by far. So another new segment I want to start, and this is my wife's idea here, is, well, let's just let the title card do the talking. Yeah, so she said, and I said, maybe I'll call it random shit I hear, because she said you should have a new segment called Shit My Wife Says, just stuff about bodybuilding and things like that. So I did have, at one point, very randomly this week, I was checking out at a store, and the guy, the cashier said, "Are you a bodybuilder?" I'm like, oh, all right. Stop. I mean, I'm not the biggest guy in the world. I'm not Jay Cutler walking around or anything like that. So to be recognized as that, I won't lie, it was a little bit of an ego boost. That was kind of nice. So that was kind of cool. Other stuff is like, with all the social functions here, invariably, especially if you're not eating, and to be clear, nobody cared that I wasn't eating at these things, but also everybody knows what I do. They've seen this stuff before, but still, it's like there's a lot of random shit that comes up like, hey, are you supposed to be like super dehydrated on stage and stuff like that? And, people have no idea about categories, about, like, a lot of people don't even know that there are women at bodybuilding shows. So, I mean, it's just, it's funny whenever I have a conversation with people that are not immersed into this, like the way that I am. Like, my wife is not immersed into it, but she knows enough about it just by being around me. She knows kind of generally what it's about. Clients, et cetera, they know what it's about. But just, what I would call like the civilian population. It's always enlightening to be like, oh yeah, there's a very low level of knowledge about this, just generally. Like, people just don't understand. And so I got to go on a little bit about like how awful the show formatting is. One person said, wait, so if he, meaning me, talking to my wife, if he goes and competes, you have to pay for a ticket? I'm like, oh yeah, that's how they make their money. So it's kind of funny just to hear things from that perspective. So a lot of stuff like that. I mean, if you've competed before, you know what all these questions are that people ask. Like, do you have to do this? Do you have to do that? Do you have to shave? What's the tan like? Blah, blah. And, it's all those kind of questions. So it's nothing too super earth shattering, but there will be more of this stuff. Like right now, like people are not stopping me randomly to talk about it or anything like that. My goal is, as I get leaner and leaner and leaner and start to look a little freakier, those kind of things are going to happen more and more. I'll probably have less and less patience for it as it goes on as well, but it will make for some interesting fodder for this segment at least. Okay, digging in on the numbers for the week. Let me pull them up here so I can kind of go along with you here. There was, as you can see, there was a lot of movement here this week. It was crazy. So we started the week, realistic at 15 weeks out, I was 238.6. Now that number was a little high, clearly, because going into the following day, I dropped 3 pounds, but then down another 0.8, down 0.4, back up 0.4, down 1.4, down 1, down 1, down 0.8. Like, it was a big week here. I mean, if you're just comparing averages, it was a 4.3 pound drop for the week. That's a big freaking deal. And you can see like my rate of loss, expected rate of loss here going forward per week, or necessary rate of loss to make the weight cap at show day. Dropped from 1.94 pounds per week down to 1.77 pounds per week. So it was a big deal. And typically I would say like, that's not necessarily a good thing, and certainly sustaining that rate of loss is not the goal. So we'll talk about what's coming up here as far as that's concerned. But for a week, I'll take it. And also like performance in the gym, like I was still hitting PRs on everything. Performance isn't dropping. I was feeling fine. My energy typically tanks on Tuesdays, actually. And I'm not sure why that is. I think it might just be like day after leg day blues or something like that. It is a rest day. I'm just generally a little less like, on schedule. And so I feel like I've got a little bit more time to be lazy. So I think my body kind of like knows that it has permission to do it, so it kind of chills out and wants to take a nap on Tuesdays. Right now, that's about it. Like, I didn't take a nap all weekend long. I feel good. Energy's fine. Still training really well. So the drop wasn't a huge concern because of that. Now, again, my goal is not to repeat that again going forward. You can also see like there was one day here, the 27th, where I cut my post-workout cardio short by 5 minutes. There was the 29th, I woke up a little bit late, so I did 10 minutes less fasted cardio, but plugged that into my post-workout cardio instead, so it all still pretty much evened out there. So as you can see, the numbers very cooperative for the week. I attributed this to a few things. First of all, I'll just lead with this. Clan being introduced made a difference here for sure. It's the first week in that came in at 15 weeks out on the 24th. Just 40 micrograms per day, small dose, and that's where it's going to stay. And that's it. But clearly, like, you can see the difference between, without that and with it in. It was 2.3 pounds one week and then 4.3 pounds the next week. Again, I would not expect that to continue. Weight was up a little bit today versus yesterday, so we'll see. Just need to collect a little bit more data there. I did make some changes already, so we'll talk about that too. So that's the numbers for the week. I'm pretty happy with that. Can't really complain about much anything there. All right, so qualitative stuff for the week. So here, hold on, I can't see myself. Am I pointing in the right direction there? It's always towards the guitars, yes. Here is the video for the week. So you can see, again, the video, I don't know that it really shows all that much. It's one of those things, I got to figure out, like, there's a spectrum for all of this where it's like, you're not feeling or seeing anything. Then you start to feel some stuff. And then you start to like notice things are shifting a little bit differently as far as like clothes fitting. And then you're like starting to see some changes like with a pump. And then it's like over time, then things show in photos. Like I had a crazy, crazy pump yesterday in the gym doing chest and arms. Like things looked ridiculous. Go to take a photo in the gym, can't see shit. Part of that is just like I don't know how to selfie. I got no skills. I got no selfie game at all. So that's part of it. But clearly, like I'm not sure how much this video really shows. To me, I still don't really see anything. I am more likely like catching glimpses of things throughout the day. Like if I just flex a quad, I'm like, oh, there's more separation there. That's cool. Like, oh, those veins are out a little bit more now. That's cool. So there is stuff like that comes out, but also like in the photos here in the video, which is always fasted first thing Sunday morning, cold, no pump, no warm up, just because it's going to capture you at your least impressive. But also it's at your most consistent week to week. So while it doesn't look super impressive, it is consistent for comparative purposes at least. So it's not an ego boost by any stretch of the imagination. It's clearly just a diagnostic tool. Everything else, like I alluded to before, like sleep is great, appetite is manageable. It's fine. Like I'm definitely a little bit hungrier now, but it's a level of hunger that's completely and totally manageable. I would say it's a little hungrier than I've ever been at 14 weeks out before. So that is a little concerning, but also I'm like in a much better position than I have ever been at 14 weeks out before, by virtue of the fact that I've been doing this for 8 weeks already now. So I should be better along. Training's still great. Fatigue is being well managed. I do have a little bit of like a thing in my right hip where it's just a little uncomfortable just walking around. So I'm going to warm it up today. I'm planning on doing legs. I'm going to warm it up and see how it feels. I'm not afraid to call an audible if I don't think I can really hit the hack squat effectively, which is the primary lift for today. If I feel like I'm going to have to pull back on that, I might give it a day to chill out and just swap today with back day on Wednesday, for example. So I might do back today if it doesn't feel quite right and just give it a little bit more time to recover. Everything else I think is fine. The way I feel is great. How things look is really just a question mark, but just based on the other little things that I'm feeling here and there, I'm pretty happy with it. Pretty happy with how things are progressing here. Okay, next steps for the week ahead. I mentioned that I had already made some changes just based on the numbers that I saw yesterday and looking at like, okay, 4-point-something pounds down for the week on average. Not what we need to do. So yesterday I did make the executive decision to bring some carbs back in around, let me see, I brought in... Where did it go? Here it is. 44 grams of carbs, along with some trace fats, trace proteins. And so a couple weeks back, I had pulled out, I had some pita crackers with the meal, and I'd pulled those out. I'm just bringing those back in. So the drop with the clen thrown in was a little more than I needed it to be. So I'm just going to bring those back in, only on training days, though. So the updated numbers here, which I will throw on the screen, the training days are unchanged. Or I'm sorry, the non-training days, the rest days, are unchanged from last week. The new training day numbers are now 294, 413, 76. We'll call it 295, 415, 75. So just a little bit of a bump up there. It's about, what did I bring in? I brought in 280 calories. So, if you drop 4 pounds in a week, let's run the math here on this real quick here. And so you can say 3,500 calories roughly is about a pound. So 3,500 times, what was it, 4.3 tells me I'm at a deficit of 15,000 calories for the week. That right there tells you these calculations are, not quite always perfect. Like it's definitely in excess of that. Or definitely less than that. So if I wanted to cut that rate of loss in half and just be good with 2 pounds per week, we divide that by 2. So now I'm at, a 7,500 calorie deficit. Cool, which means, basically I can bring in 7,500 calories, right? Which means I should be able to increase 1,000 calories a day and still drop weight. It's not how it works. So clearly what we're dealing with here on the spreadsheet, 4.3 pounds per week, it's a small sample size. And if I was going to continue this week, it would probably not be another 4.3 pound drop. I would not expect that. So clearly, if you just run the math on this and trust 3,500 calories is the pound of body fat, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, that's generally true, but there's so many other factors to consider here. You just can't assume that. So by the books, I should be able to bring in 1,000 calories per day. I'm bringing in 280, and I think that's going to hit me where I need to be. So that's kind of the goal here for this week. As far as things to watch ahead for, potential pitfalls or anything, this week is easy. I don't think there's anything going on this week. I have a long appointment on Thursday, but I'll train in the morning before then, work meals around it. It's not that big of a deal. It's just a long appointment at the dermatologist, which I started a while back doing these laser scar removal treatments with this Morpheus 8 laser, which is very weird thing. But seems worthwhile from what I've seen so far. And this goes back to like stuff I had as a teenager, and I've just been carrying it around for 35 years since then. So finally decided to do something about it. And so the last one of those is this Thursday. So, and it does, apparently it takes like, upwards of 6 to 12 months for it to fully heal as much as it's going to after your final treatment. So should put me in a pretty good position going into the show, as far as like being, as pristine as it's going to be, which is to say not perfect, but better. So, so that's the only challenge, coming up for the week ahead. Otherwise it should be pretty freaking chill. All right, questions and answers for the week. As I said in the opening, if you have questions that you want me to answer here, just throw them in the comments. I will see those and we'll knock them out. So Natalie Allen asks, hey Natalie, for clients, do I require them to take progress pictures fasted or pumped? Alluded to this earlier, fasted all the way. Just because if they're pumped, you're not necessarily always going to be pumped in this. Like I don't need people to do a full body pump up routine, just because with most of my clients, just getting photos is the challenge. If I say you have to spend 15 minutes pumping up prior to taking photos, I'm never going to get them, right? Or everybody's going to say, I didn't have time to take them this morning because I didn't have time to pump up, right? So you have to be practical and just say, we're accepting these cold. I know that things look less impressive now than they typically do. Like, and a lot of people will include a couple of photos from the gym as well. Like, I'm not this lame, I promise. See? I'm like, I get it. You don't need to do that. I totally get it. It's still good for me to see that, but I totally get it. But fasted, just for purposes of comparison, is always the way to go. And then a follow-up from last week, Carol Ann Mobley, once again, hi, Carol Ann. She asks here, this is too small. Hold on, there we go. Thanks for sharing about your food. Not into cheat meals, even for clients. She remembers that, which I'll elaborate on that. Well, actually, let's handle that now. It's not that I'm not into it. It's just that typically, like when I write a plan for somebody, it's not going to include a cheat meal at the start. It's like, hey, let's just clean this up and let's play it close to the vest for a few weeks and just see how it does. Prove to me that you can do it, basically. Because if you can't go a couple of weeks without a cheat meal, you're going to have a hard time making progress. Like, just accept that, your old normal is not necessarily going to be your new normal, right? So part of that for me is like, hey, can we do this? Can you just eat clean and follow a meal plan without interruption for a couple of weeks? The problem then is I will forget about it unless they ask. So, because I'm like, great, cool, keep doing it. And then sometimes like 7 weeks in, somebody will be like, hey, do I ever get a cheat meal? I'm like, oh yeah, we can do that, sure. So it depends on the person and the goal. So for me, I am not a fan just because I have in previous preps done a weekly cheat meal, and it is the thing that has kept me from getting as lean as I need to be. So now the goal is, and also without a giant binge eating cheat meal, you can eat more on a day-to-day basis because you're not completely undoing your deficit with one meal. And then, every day is just a little less difficult. You don't get that release valve or anything like that. But also, if you're in the right mindset, you can convince yourself that you don't need it. And that's where I'm at right now. So she continues, for cardio, do I do steady state? Yes, thought HIIT was more effective for cardio. So the thing about that is HIIT is more effective for burning calories, but it also drives a disproportionate amount of additional fatigue. And when you're in prep, you've got a lot of things that are already driving fatigue. We don't need to add more into that. So lower intensity cardio and more of it is optimal. A little bit of HIIT here and there isn't a bad idea. I am not doing any myself because I've done that in previous preps and I've felt how crappy it makes me feel. Like you're just dragging ass, and as soon as your gym performance starts to suffer, you're already probably too far deep down the rabbit hole, and you need to look at like a deload week in order to be able to recover from that. And then the question is, if you're in prep for a show, do you have time for that deload week? Did you build that into your schedule? So there's a little bit of a delicate song and dance there. The other thing is to consider like the area under the curve. If your y-axis here is calories burned per minute and this is time on the x-axis, you're going to have steady state cardio where you're burning a certain number of calories per minute for a longer duration. For HIIT cardio, if it's truly HIIT, you're going to have a much higher calories per minute burn rate, but it's going to drop off precipitously much sooner. And so even though that rate's higher, it's not that much lower for steady state, and you sustain it for that much longer, you end up burning more calories over a session. So HIIT is more efficient, but with that efficiency comes the cost of wearing you out that much more. And for me, 100% not worth it. So that's it. That's 14 weeks out. So thank you for watching. Like I said, you can check out my website, 5starphysique.com. You can follow me on social media at Darren_star. Check out the Drop Set podcast. I just posted episode 246 last week on Friday, I believe it was. Friday night was when that went up. And this was all about trying to put the final word on meal plans versus macros. If I think, I will put a card up there so you can link to that. That is actually a video podcast that's on YouTube as well, so you can check that out if you haven't seen it. So once again, thank you for watching, and I'll catch up with you again at 13 weeks out.